Do you believe? This morning we investigate the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, poltergeist. Some people claim to hold the ability to cross over and speak to departed loved ones in spirit form. They're couriers of messages from the dead. But pathologists, scientists and academics have studied this phenomenon, and most come to the reoccurring conclusion there is nothing scientific to back their claim. Charlatans, crooks and criminals have used the guise of mediumship to carry out their wicked deeds, but over 60% of the population still believe the dead speak. This morning, Harriet Howard, a believer, reports back on an experiment undertaken on Friday night in Norfolk's most haunted hotel. She's arranged for the Hopton Ghost Hunters, a medium, and a team operating equipment which claims to record ghosts' voices and movements. But is this the voice of a female spirit answering yes to a question posed by our investigators?
She was living around, but that was 6 months where she left.
This morning, you tell me on 01603 617 321, do you believe? Can you speak with the dead? Or would you claim that mediums are manipulators cruelly playing on the grievances of others? This morning, the Paranormal Experiment Live. And a very good morning to you. 01603 617 321 if you're picking up the phone this morning. And you can text 81333. Start your text with the word Norfolk. Standard network rates apply. conrad@bbc.co.uk if you wish to email the programme. Steve and Nick are in the studio with me. Nick Kenning is a medium. Steve is a part of the Norfolk Hauntings team who are with us on Friday night. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
Steve, let's start with you. We'll talk about Friday night. We're going to hear more about it later on in the programme. What did you find?
I wasn't there.
You weren't there. I do
No,
beg
I
your
wasn't
pardon.
there.
I'm terribly sorry, Steve. So I thought you were with the team on Friday.
No.
Forgive me for that.
The Hopton Ghost lot that were there on the Friday evening.
Right, and they were recording.
And they were recording and had cameras and their equipment and K2 meters and temperature sensors.
Okay, we'll come to some of that audio in a moment, which I've heard bits of this morning, which is quite interesting. We'll talk about that. Steve, forgive me. You are part of Norfolk Hauntings. Just to get it right in my mind, tell me what you do.
Well, we're paranormal investigators. We just look for paranormal activity if we can, and just try and get as much proof as possible, which is very, very hard.
Who would call you out? What kind of person would get in contact with you and say, can you help?
Us like private homes, us now getting to businesses as well, so we're just getting quite out there at the moment.
And you'll turn up with equipment, or you'll just monitor?
Yeah, we'll turn up with our equipment, set up, start, get a look at the place, see what we're up against, go by feelings some of the time.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time.
And in terms of the drama of what you've found, people talk about poltergeists throwing things around, that spirits can be dangerous, they can cross over with human beings. Is that true, or is it just that a spirit lingering in a building will give it a slightly eerie and sinister feel?
There's a bit of everything. There is poltergeists that exist, as Nick would know. But a lot of times we just deal with spirit just hovering around, really.
And why would people want to get rid of a spirit? Or is it often that people don't wish to get rid of the spirit, they just want to know what's there?
A lot of time that's just say, are we going mad, or things like that. Sometimes that's not always spirit, that is to do with a house, which is old, creaky, things like that. That's why we go in. But yeah, they get rid of it because they're scared, some of them.
And tell me about the spooky things that you have experienced here in Norfolk. What have you actually been through?
Quite a few things, obviously. The first time, can't really name the place, but that was in Norfolk, that me and my friend Jay, we went to this location, and we were about to pack up. I mean, we just started, and we got this voice of a little girl, literally just, we could not believe it. Our hearts were racing and everything. That was a brilliant experience.
And when you hear something, when you identify a spirit, then I guess it's exhilarating, it's exciting.
Yeah, that's think. But there's a lot of non-believers, obviously, but when we get it, we're just over the moon with it. We think, oh, yeah, brilliant.
And what would you make of non-believers, those who are cynical, those who simply just would say there is probably a logical explanation to explain away what you believe is a spirit?
Oh, now everyone's entitled to their opinion, to be honest. If they don't believe, they don't believe, you know. It's up to us to say, watch a clip, see what you think. But, no, you know.
Okay, 01603 617 321 to join us this morning. Now, Steve wasn't out on our investigation on Friday night, but has experience in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play these clips that we picked up from this location, which will tell you more about later on in the programme. Nick, you were there, weren't you?
Yes, I was,
you were
yeah.
there, okay.
Yeah.
If you both got headphones in front of you, if you pop them on now, I'm just going to play you a couple of clips. Now, this is the first clip that we have picked out for you this morning. If you listen very carefully, it does sound like a woman's voice is answering yes after the question was asked, was she living on her own? It also sounds like she says it again a few seconds later. So let's hear it.
How old was the previous tenant?
Lauren, my daughter's same age as Chloe.
Well, she's 23, isn't she?
Yeah, how old are you?
21.
Was she single, sorry to ask?
Yeah,
So she was living on her own, but that was 6 months where she left.
because she felt like she was going mad.
Right, okay. Nick, in that, this is this woman's voice that was answering yes, which is quite difficult because it actually it sounds like a human voice. It sounds like there's somebody
does, yeah.
answer it who's whispering yes over the tape, but that wasn't somebody in the room. The argument this morning put forward by the team on this experiment was that was a spirit.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
to me, it sounds as though there was something there.
Okay. We're just going to play that little bit clip again for you because this is, you may not have heard it the first time. We've isolated the clip. This is the bit where she says yes.
She was living on her own, but that was 6 months where she left.
It's quite a breathy kind of yes, yes. Okay. All right then. For people listening in this morning, it'd be quite difficult for them because they're not in the setting, they're not in that environment to be able to try and come up with plausible and logical alternative explanations. There are some who really doubt this, and they say that mediumship and the ability to talk to the dead really is the domain of charlatans, crooks, and those who want to manipulate others. How would you answer that?
To be honest with you, there's lots of skeptics out there, people that don't believe. Yes, there was people in it for the wrong reasons, monetary reasons or fame reasons or whatever. That's up to them what they do. For myself, and I can only speak for myself, it's about proving to whoever comes and sees me or stands in front of me that there is life after what we call physical death. So it doesn't matter how that person passed away, whether they were sick, whether they just by an accident or whatever. It's bringing through that evidence from spirit that they're still there, and they just basically want to say hello and prove that they're still around things. But like I said, people have their own opinions and they're entitled to their own opinions. But it just fascinates me, especially when we do an investigation like we did on Friday, just to be a part of that and just feel the energy that comes in when you've got something and somebody around you who is not particularly nice. And you can feel that, and other members of the team were feeling things, sensing things, physical things as well. We had the K2 meters, and they were just going mad, which shows that there's a physical spirit presence. And I think a couple of members of your team were going around with that as well. And they were just, it was just interesting for them to get them to work with things, trust their feelings, because that's how we work when we work with spirit. We trust feelings.
For me, when I conduct this interview, when I conduct all interviews, I like to go along with the person who's talking to me, and I like to, for the sake of the interview, try and invest and believe in the contributor. I've done it when people talk about alien life form, when people talk about some quite extreme things that have happened in their life, rather than always being a doubter. I must be honest, I'm quite a cynic about all of this. But I'd love to hear from you this morning, and I'm very grateful for you coming in, about what it's like to be able to communicate with the dead and what you see, or if you do see anything, or if it's just words that you hear. It's a big. I'm going to do some travel, then we'll come back to that, because it's a large area to explain.
There is it can be quite involved. But,
okay. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment, because somebody said to me the other day, and I believe actually when we met, you said this to me. I'm not switched on. So let's talk through the whole process and see if we can try and understand it. 01603 617 321 to join us this morning. I'd love you on the programme. Do you believe in people's ability to be able to talk to others in spirit form? And have you had a very convincing reading from a medium, or would you tell me this morning that you think that this is manipulation by people who often make money out of it, and they're preying on the vulnerable? 01603 617 321, and Harriet Howard's investigation with the Hopton Ghost Hunters and Nick is going to play after 11 o'clock this morning.
Have you ever had the urge to change the world?
To swap your makeup for a paw print.
To bake 50 fabulous fruitcakes.
To wash 100 cars.
To wear your pants outside your trousers.
Any one of these things makes you a fundraising superhero. Proud to do anything in the name of raising money. So go on, be a hero for BBC Children in Need.
Sign up and pledge your allegiance.
Go to bbc.co.uk/Pudsey.
BBC Radio Norfolk Travel.
Here's Kaylee.
Thank you, Nick. Well, on the A47, if you're heading Yarmouth bound looking to exit at transfer the A146, just be aware there has been a collision on the slip road blocking one of the lanes there. Now, the A146 itself has been queuing in that area all morning. Our sensors still saying around 15-minute delays heading from before the A47 lights towards the County Hall roundabout. Also in Norwich, queues on approaches to the Showground roundabout because of roadwork starting today on Dereham Road between that roundabout and Longwater Lane. Still looking very slow in on the Earlham Road as well, and the A140 towards the boundary. And in Yarmouth, Acle Strait still relatively slow towards town as well. I'm Kaylee Poacher, live from Norfolk Traffic Control. For any updates, 01603 617 321.
We're doing a paranormal experiment this morning on BBC Radio Norfolk, and we're asking, do you believe? In the studio with me, I have got Steve, who is from Norfolk Hauntings, and I've also got Nick as well, who is a medium. Now, Steve wasn't on our experiment on Friday night, but Nick was. But Steve has brought some audio in for us to listen to, and we'll be talking about what he has managed to gather and what he has found in Norfolk shortly. Nick, as a medium, we talk about switching on and switching off. And your ability to be able to talk to people in spirit form. Just talk me through the process.
Okay. For me particularly, when I start, it's a case of what I call opening yourself up. We as human beings have what they call chakra points or energy centres or whatever you want to call them on our bodies. And we use what they call the main seven. So they start at the base and they finish at the top of your head. And it's a case of opening these up. And what that does when you open them up is it increases your vibration. Okay. And when people pass to spirit, they operate at a higher vibration. So if you imagine the old-fashioned radio dials that used to have to turn to move the needle to increase it and to tune into the right radio station, when you open up, you raise your vibration. So, say spirit was up here, for argument's sake, you raise yours up here. So, when things operate at a higher frequency or a higher vibration, they seem invisible, for want of a bit different word. And that's why spirit, ghosts, whatever you wish to call them, seems invisible to some and not others. The people that are running at a higher vibration will be able to see things and feel things. So once you opened up your chakra points so they operate as they should do, you then start linking. And for me, I work with the team of guides that are coming in from spirit, one of which is a Native American Indian that really works closely with me, not only as a protector but bringing people through to talk, if that's a one-to-one basis, or like we did on Friday.
Can I ask you something? You're the second person in a fortnight that said to me that their spirit guide is a Native American Indian. Is there anything in that?
The only thing I would say to that is it's probably because of their struggle that they had on the earth when the Americans decided that they were far superior, and decided that they were going to try to control them. It's not always the case. I operate and run what they call a trance and physical circle, where people sit to develop trance mediumship, because there's so many different levels of mediumship. And we have a lady that sits in the trance cabinet, and she has an alien that comes through and talks to us. And that alien's perception of our world is completely different because he's still alive. He's not passed over as such.
And do you see things, or do you just hear things? You see things?
I hear and I see things and I feel things.
Could you switch on today here, or would that be too difficult in this environment?
Could be. Could
Okay.
be.
Well, if would you mind trying for us? Would that be okay? If you can't, then I totally understand that. Roy is our first caller, and Roy is in Downham Market. Roy, you've got in the studio with you an expert panel this morning. You've got Nick and Steve. What would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to tell you my experience. We only did it twice, and I've never done it since. In the 60s, I restored the Priory at Magdalen, which had been empty for 19 years and a ruin. Unfortunately, my father had hung himself when I was 19, and this Christmas, my ex-wife, we invited her friends from the city down who never knew my father, his name or anything about him, and we were playing games at Christmas, and then somebody said, well, what shall we play now? And one said, let's have a seance. So I said, well, what do you have to do? So one of these girls said, well, you just put the alphabet round the table and a yes and a no and a glass upside down, which we did. And we all put a finger on this glass, and it was unbelievable the speed the glass slid across the table. And Velda said, is there anyone there? And it spelled out Ernest William Gooding, which was my late father's name. Sorry, I get a bit full about it, but anyhow, she said, what is your message? And he said, I wish Roy a Merry Christmas. Well, we all jumped up and put the lights up and was having hot drinks and was in quite a state. And Valda from London said, I'll tell you now, Mum, when I was at school we played this, and Dad sent his love to you. And so we just presumed that Valda had the power, if there was a power.
Okay, well, Roy, this is interesting.
And then on the Boxing Day, my mother, stepfather, and aunts and uncles came. And, of course, Mother was a bit tearful, and my stepfather said, how could you tell a lie and upset your mother like this? And my aunt flew at him and said, you know Roy doesn't lie, and how can you insult his house guests? And so we agreed we'd have one on Boxing evening.
Right.
Well, Rudy was my stepfather's name. He sat down, and my uncles, and just the one London girl came on. The rest stood in the background, and Rudy said, I don't believe in this nonsense. And the glass shot over to him and wobbled so much that fell over in front of him.
Okay, all right, Roy, just pause there 1 second, because Steve and Nick are in the studio, and I know they're both itching to get in here. We hear this a lot about glasses shooting across the table and seances like this, but we're careful what we say, because this is Roy and Roy's family, and this is Roy's treasured memory, and I respect that. But a lot of people are quite critical of this form of trying to get in contact with the other side.
But what I'd like to explain...
Hang on, Roy.
Yes, okay.
Would you just pause 1 second, let the boys come in.
Right, my take on whether it's a seance, which is what sounds like Roy has done, but it sounds like using a planchette, which is different to a Ouija board, same way of communicating and contacting spirit. The only thing I would stress to everyone listening, please do it with the right intention, because I get so many calls from people to say they've conducted seances, Ouija boards, whatever you want to call it, in the home. They've not treated it with respect, and they've got all manner of things happening.
When you say all manner of things, what do you mean?
Basically, if you've done a Ouija board or seance and you've not closed it down at the end, it's like leaving the front door of your house open 24/7, 7 days a week, all year. So basically, you're giving spirit, not necessarily your family, so I'm putting them to one side for the moment, but spirit, and there's... You see, people think that it's all love and light and there's all angels and saints when they go, but sadly, it's not the case. And if they were naughty and mischievous when they were on the earth plane, they're still going to be the same when they go to spirit.
This is why you close down.
And that's why I close down, and other people that work with spirit close down afterwards. Because not only do you need to protect yourself and your home, you need to then... just look after yourself, because you wouldn't let anybody to come close to you who you didn't want to be with, who you didn't like or didn't get on with.
Okay, and Steve, you have the same advice from you?
Nick was right on that, mainly Ouija boards. Some can be left open, call in the wrong ones. Some could stay, really angry spirits. They could hang around, make life difficult for the living.
How would they make life difficult?
Suddenly you come up, say, with really bad luck, everything, you're getting ill, things like that could all carry on. That might not even start at that time. That could come a bit later on. So just be very aware of Ouija boards mainly.
Okay, Roy, thank you for your call. Sue joins the conversation. Good morning, Sue.
Hi,
Hi.
Nick.
You're a believer?
Yeah.
You've got Steve and Nick listening in to what you've got to say this morning. Tell us what you've experienced.
Some few years ago now, I woke up early hours one morning. I heard my son having a conversation. And I heard the man who he was having a conversation with. I heard his voice, and I knew that voice. I knew it very, very well. My son was asleep. And I just sat there listening. I sat up in bed and listened. And it was my grandfather's voice. So I did know it very, very well. And the things that he was saying to my son, who had been going through a bit of a hard time at school, and it was letting things get on top of him, the things my grandfather was saying was exactly what he would have said. And later on in the day, I said to my son, you had a good conversation with someone last night. He said, I had a weird dream. He said, and this bloke was having a right go at me. I said, yeah. He said, don't know who it was. I said, you having a right old conversation. I said, and I knew the voice. He said, who? I said, my grandfather. He says, have you got any photos of him? So I've only got the one. I show it to him, and he said, that's who I was dreaming about.
Right. Okay. Right. I mean, I find myself. I have to be honest. I am a cynic, as you know. I'm not a believer. It's very difficult when you hear stories like that because you've crossed over from being unconscious to conscious. You've got two people who are now reporting the same thing back to you as well. You've got somebody who wouldn't have known what your grandfather looked like, or potentially could have known if you've got pictures around the house.
This one picture was not in a frame on the wall. It was in a photograph album, and my son hadn't seen that photograph.
And for somebody like me who would say, sadly, I'd love to believe the story, but I find myself questioning it, simply because it feels implausible that the dead can speak, because if they could, then surely there'd be more documented evidence of it. How would you answer that question?
I would say you believe what you like. I know what happened.
I would like to believe. I mean, you know that I'm very open-minded, Sue, and so I'm not questioning you, and I don't want to pour doubt on your story. This is just my personal belief. I would love to say to the spirit world, Nick, would the spirit world be listening now, or would they be able?
Possibly.
So they could hear this. If I said to the spirit world, I'm an open-minded person, but I don't believe. Maybe not now, but show me a sign, or try and show me some evidence, and I would be very receptive. Would that be a way of trying to court a spirit?
It would help people in your family that's passed over. It would give them a sign to say, well, actually, he's willing to listen or want to see us or want to hear from us or whatever the case may be. But just listening to what Sue was saying, people always say to me, well, children aren't aware of spirit, they aren't sensitive. Well, I'm sorry, but that's so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. My son is going to be 3 next Tuesday, and not only just because of the people that comes to me to see me for sittings or whatever. When they come in, he doesn't look at the body, he doesn't look at the face, he's looking around here. He's seeing the people that walk in our house with the people that come to see me from spirit. He's so switched on to things, and he'll point out people. And the other day we heard him jabbing away, similar thing to Sue, talking away in his room, and he was saying to the gentleman that was in his bedroom, "Shh, Mummy's coming. You've got to go now." And he's not even 3. And when I showed him a picture who I thought it was, he pointed to it and smiled.
Okay.
So that, to me, is an indication of the person that he saw was similar to Sue and her son.
We'll talk about how it gets passed down and who can and who can't receive. Linda, you've got a question for Nick.
Yeah, I just wondered why all these things seem to happen at night and not in the daytime, all these ghost hunts and things, you know. Why are they in the day? And why are they at night time, not in the daytime?
That's a good question. I wish that more would be done in the daytime, because then it's not so tiring, to be honest with you. Because I think on Friday I got in at about 2:10 Saturday morning. But yes, you can do it in the daytime. It doesn't make anything less happen, but at night it's more for the visual cameras that are used. They can pick up things, they can sense things, temperature changes, and of course it's quieter outside during the night. Like the location we were on Friday, even though it's right on the main road, there was still cars going up and down and drunken people doing whatever they would decide to do outside the windows. So by doing it at night, you try and limit outside interference. So anything that you pick up on microphones or cameras is sort of going to the way that you can explain that, okay, it's nothing outside, so therefore it's got to be paranormal, spirit, ghosts, whatever.
Okay. Nick, thank you. Linda, thank you. 01603 617 321 to join us this morning. Text at 1340 says, I can't believe that you're giving this utter rubbish airtime. Surely there are more important things to discuss on a Monday morning, says Cam and Phil. Phil, call into the programme this morning. I'd love to have you on. Dave on the email says, Nick, I love your programme. I love the fact that you have got a broad range of subjects, but this is utterly ridiculous discussing this morning. Usually you talk politics and current affairs. That said, I'm kind of enjoying it in a wrong way. Okay, well, Conrad at bbc.co.uk if you want to email us, 01603 617 321 if you want to call us, 81333 if you wish to text us this morning. We are talking about whether you believe or not, and I would like a fellow cynic on the phones this morning. Why is it that we are cynical? What is it about this that we don't believe when lots of people tell us that they have encountered loved ones, friends and others in spirit form? 9:31. Top three stories on the BBC Radio Norfolk news desk. The leader of Great Yarmouth Borough Council, Trevor Wainwright, believes that paying the living wage has not meant a big increase in their staff costs. Angela Merkel has been reported as saying that she would prefer the UK left the compromise on the principle of free movement of people to later on rather than discuss it now. And there are major changes to the roads in Norwich City Centre from today. Grapes Hill traffic lights will be switched back on and Chapelfield North will be opened to two-way traffic.
BBC Radio Norfolk Travel.
Here's Kaylee Poacher.
Thank you, Nick. Well, on the A47, if you're heading Yarmouth bound looking to exit at Charles for the A146, there has been a collision on the slip road. It's blocking one of the lanes there, so do take care heading off. Also in Norwich, still looking fairly slow heading from the Showground roundabout onto Dereham Road, all because of roadworks starting today. Southgate's roundabout still looking fairly slow on camera in Kings Lynn as well. And some possible 10-minute delays on trains between Norwich, Diss and London. It's after signal problems earlier this morning. I'm Kaylee Poacher, live from Norfolk Traffic Control. Your next update's at 5 to 10.
Coming up.
Back in October, we brought you the news that according to their own research, 100,000 people watch Mustard TV on a monthly basis. But are you one of them? And what do you think of the new TV service? My guest at 10 o'clock is Mustard TV Managing Director Fiona Ryder. We'll be looking at those figures, plus the future of local TV. 01603 617 321. To join us, you can text 81333. Start your message with the word Norfolk.
Nick Conrad on BBC Radio Norfolk.
This morning we're investigating the paranormal. Many people believe in an individual's ability to be able to cross over and speak to loved ones in spirit form. But what about ghosts and poltergeists? Some people claim to hold the ability to cross over and speak to our departed loved ones. And have you experienced a positive interaction with a medium? Or maybe you were left a little cold? 01603 617 321 to join us this morning. In many ways, they are couriers of messages from the dead, but pathologists, scientists and academics have studied this phenomenon and most come to the reoccurring conclusion that there's nothing scientific to back their claim. Charlatans, crooks and criminals have used the guide of mediumship to carry out their wicked deeds, but over 60% of the population still believe the dead speak. This morning, Harriet Howard, a believer, reports back on an experiment undertaken on Friday night in Norfolk's most haunted hotel. She arranged for the Hopton Ghost Hunters, a medium, and a team operating equipment which claims to record ghosts' voices and movements. And we're going to play some of that audio for you from 11 o'clock this morning. 01603 617 321 to join us. Do you believe? Can you speak with the dead? Or would you claim that mediums are manipulators cruelly playing on the grievances of others? Nick's in the studio. Nick is a medium, Nick Kenning, and also we have Steve in the studio as well. Steve is from Norfolk Hauntings, and Steve's job is to go to places where they believe there is a haunting and to help advise and also identify what is lingering there, if anything at all. And Steve Brown has been doing this for a number of years. Simon is on the line from Great Yarmouth. Good morning, Simon.
Yeah, good morning, Nick.
Good morning. You've got a question for Nick?
Yeah, well, given what he believes, I'd just like to ask what his faith is. Does he have faith? And religious, I mean, because, I also wondered, since he believes that the dead are trying to communicate, what is his religious belief?
My religious belief is that I am a spiritualist. So therefore I believe that once your body passes its use on the earth plane, you then pass to the higher realms in the spirit world, and your loved ones, your friends, whoever it may be, will then come back and could be around your home trying to prove that they're around, whether it's someone that passed in an unpleasant way or whether that's just a family member. But that's where the root of my belief is, that I am a spiritualist.
Okay. I'm thinking, do you believe in God?
This is a good question. I say this is a good question because it all depends on what form. If you believe that there's one person called God, then I don't, I'm sorry. I believe that there's a higher force that's there, that's part of it, but one man that's called God that created everything that has never had sat right with himself.
An interesting way of going at that question is, the spirits that you talk to, what have they told you of the afterlife? And if I said to you that some believe that these spirits are in purgatory, so these spirits are non-believers who are not at peace, they're in a middle ground, how would you answer that?
There's sort of two parts to that. So if we sort of separate the bit where spirits could be in the middle ground, whether they be stuck on the earth plane or what, we'll move that to one side for the moment. When you talk about my guides that help me, my inspirers that talk to me, they tell me about the afterlife, spirit world, whatever you want to call it. There's lots of different names for it, and they talk about how it is, and loved ones meet up with loved ones that have gone before, etc., etc. And it's the same with children. If sadly that you lose a child on the earth plane, then that child will continue to grow up and develop in spirit world. And not only do the ghost people record child's voices, laughter, playing, whatever, it's a known thing. But then when you talk about spirits that are stuck, that's a complete different, because that's where you get into the realms of house possessions, whether there's strange things in the home, because we are energy. Inside our body we are energy. And years ago I used to have my computer printer downstairs, and when people came to see me for one-to-one, if we hadn't gone up in time before the people from Spirit wanted to talk to their loved ones, my printer would switch itself on and it would start churning out paper and paper and paper. Because they're energy, they can interfere with things. That's why you get reports of lights turning on as and when at free will, and things happening to all sorts of electrical items. So that's why I said you try and keep that separate, because then you get into the realms of not nice things that can be stuck and who want to cause havoc and chaos. Okay. It's a complete different thing.
Steve, what are your religious beliefs?
I'm afraid I don't believe in God. Sorry to say.
Well, you shouldn't be sorry to say. It's your belief, and that's absolutely fine.
No, like Nick say, but with spirits, there is possible proof that these do exist. Unfortunately, we ain't got proof on God. So,
What I'm quite interested in, Simon, thanks for your call, by the way. What I'm quite interested in is why somebody came through the other day who was a medium and said that the ghost of my mother was standing behind his grandfather. And I said, simply ask her date of birth and I will believe. But I've asked that of many mediums. Just ask. My mother, who passed away in 1988 in spirit form, appears to be rather chatty, but won't give up that simple information that would allow me to believe.
Okay. The reason, or I'll try and explain that, is if I met you out on the street in Norwich, I couldn't make you say, "Hello, Nick, how are you?" I couldn't make you stop. I couldn't get you to tell me information. And it's the same when people go to spirit. If they don't want to give that information, I know it would be fantastic proof for you.
But I know that
and
she
all
would
the
want
loved
to
ones.
give that information.
Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not saying that's how it is all the time, but it's trying to just sort of understand how it is and the mechanics of it. Yes, you can hear things, but I could get really technical by saying, for argument's sake, we'll go back to the radio dial. Say I'm operating here, and your mum, for argument's sake, is operating here. There would be information that I would not be able to hear from her because simply our vibration level is not identical. When it does get identical, then that's where the information will come through clearer and louder and more precise.
Okay. Okay, Tracy's going to join us in a moment. Nick, is there any chance that you could switch on, or would that be too difficult this morning?
Well, see what happens.
Okay, all right then. It's not as simple as just going bang, is it, for you? Okay, that's fine. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. What would you like to say?
What I'd like to say is, about 20 years ago, I went and saw a medium. I was sort of having a bit of a bad time. And obviously I will just say that the medium who I went to see, I gave no contact details, I gave no name, no address, no nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, she knew absolutely nothing about me. Obviously, while I was having the sitting, she happened to say to me, there's a little lady, she's standing behind you at the moment. Are you aware who that may be? And at that present time, I said no. And then she said, she's fiddling. She's fiddling behind you. She said, with a belt or something. And all of a sudden, alarm bells went. And I then progressed to say, I'm almost certain I know what's going on here. It's my grandmother that passed away in 1984. I used to visit my grandmother every night on my way home from work before I got my bus home, and I had a leather coat, and I always used to get the belt twisted at the back, and she used to say to me, she'd be there, she'd be untwisting my belt, and she'd say to me, "You're going to have twins one day, young girl." She said, "This is what this is all about." And the medium then progressed to say to me, the lady that's standing behind you, she said, you lost a child to the spirit world. She said, in quite early doors. She said, and she's holding your little baby girl. Now, there's no way on this earth that anybody would have ever known about this little story between me and my grandmother. And it's always played a little bit on my mind.
But if I said to you about pregnancy, I can't quite remember what the figure is, but there's a very high percentage, something 70% of pregnancies abort themselves. And so therefore, if you said to a woman of the right age, you've lost a baby into spirit form, a lot of these pregnancies, by the way, the woman wouldn't even know that she was pregnant. She would just think it's a heavy period. So you're kind of striking lucky. You've got a 70% likelihood of hitting jackpot on that.
I think the bit that affected me more was the point of what my grandmother had always said to me. I was only 17, 18 at the time, of saying, about this belt that was always twisted. And what I'm trying to get across is how this medium
picked up
knew
on that. Yeah, okay.
This actual story. It's not so much about the actual pregnancy of my grandmother saying.
I understand, Tracy. That's quite interesting because that's picking up on a key fact. It's that little piece of information that unlocks a door to your belief. The question is, a lot of people say they get lucky, they cold read. Others would say no, they know, because somebody in spirit form is communicating with them and telling them that key piece of information to gain your trust, and then the conversation can flow. Tracy, thank you. Daniel's got a question for Steve. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, hi there. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. But I'm basically calling up because I'm a big one for the scientific method. And, years I've been told, you use scientific equipment, but this has gone on for years and we've not got anything except anecdotal evidence, which doesn't really stand for anything. And any experiments that have sort of looked like they're producing results, they can't be repeatable, and the methods looked a bit flawed looking back.
So the methods are flawed, the science is questionable, And well, with a good science experiment, then it has to be done in a controlled environment where people are open-minded to the results, but they're not confirmed believers either way. So would you, so just to rephrase your question to Daniel, what is the science behind this that makes, sorry, to Steve, forgive me. Steve, what is the science behind this that makes you so sure that you can scientifically say there is proof of the afterlife?
Well, in like cameras and voice recorders, there's some sort of magnetic that will just get there. And I was all saying crazy, but there's new science behind that.
But maybe it sounds crazy because it is crazy?
No, it's not crazy. That sounds crazy, but it's not crazy.
Okay. Daniel, thank you. Julia joins the conversation. Julia, good morning.
Morning, hello.
Good morning. What would you like to say?
Well, I just wanted to say about some of the experiences I've had. When I was younger, the first thing I ever saw, I was sitting in the back room with my sister. We were watching Doctor Who on television, and the door was open, and our old dog walked in, and in front of her was a cat, and he had his tail up, and it was see-through, transparent, and he walked along the floor, and I was watching him, and he got to a chair, and he jumped over the chair, and he went through the floor, and I was only about 6 at the time. But then after that, I mean, I could go on and on, and I've had so many experiences. And
But why have you, Julia, had experiences, but I haven't? I'm very open-minded. I think most people who listen to this programme would know that I'm open-minded. I try not to come to judgments on anybody. I try and broadcast everybody's experiences, and I do it in a way in which I hope I come across with respect to what they're saying. I'm saying this morning, I don't believe, but I am receptive and I'm open to anything, anybody in spirit form making contact with me to prove that there is some form of afterlife. How come you see things, Nick sees things, Steve sees things, and I don't?
Because the things that have happened to me in the past, I mean, they frighten me so much. But after, do you want me to carry on with? I've got a whole.
Well, give me one more very brief example.
All right. So. All right, there's lots of stuff, but when my parents lived in a house in Horsham St Faiths, I think this was the most disturbing one. I mean, I'd been there a year. I'd been abroad to work, and I came home for a while, and it was a lovely cottage, and no bad feeling at all. And I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I could hear this really heavy, deep, heavy breathing. And I held my breath because I thought it was maybe my breath on the sheet, and then I suddenly became really aware that there was something on my left-hand side. It was like even though the room was completely dark, there was a shadow there, and this heavy, heavy breathing. And I jumped out of bed and I absolutely screamed so much. The feeling in the room was most awful. It wasn't evil, it was just so strong. And anyway, I got out of the room. My parents they'd so many times heard me about my experiences. Nobody ever believed me. And then, so I decided after that to go back abroad to work because I had so much experience with this sort of thing. And then when I came home to visit, Dad told me about he'd been in bed one night, Mum was working, and he was in the house on his own, and he'd heard this breathing.
Why are these stories, I mean, forgive me, Julia, thank you for the story, but why are they always so complicated? Why isn't it that a ghost just, is lingering at the bottom of the bed and says, oh, well, cooey, I'm here, I'm the ghost of your great-aunt, Fanny, lovely to see you, don't know me, I'm Victorian, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, and there's a bit of screaming, and then the ghost disappears, whoomph, away she goes. I think it'd be simple, wouldn't it? I mean, I say that with the sense of jest, but why is it always that it's, it's got to happen at night, it's got to be dark, it's got to be scary? Why can't a spirit just appear here and say, by the way, Nick, you should believe, off I go?
Maybe it's because at night, like I said earlier, things happen at night because outside influences are barely non-existent.
Yeah.
It's not always the case. You still have stuff happen through the day. It's just being aware of it, just with feelings and sensations. And I've got a similar story that I can tell you later if you wish to, about what made me unquestionably doubt not that there is an afterlife, because if it weren't for somebody who's in spirit, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you now.
Okay. Roy's going to join us in a moment. Roy's had a ghost removed from his house. I'm going to try this now. You said already this is quite sensory, haven't you? In terms of you use all your senses when you're talking to the other side. So I'm going to use some music, and you may think I'm using music here inappropriately. So forgive me if you do. But I'm going to try something, and go with me on this one, both of you as well. Okay, I run in the morning. I run around some villages that are just inland from Cromer, and it's very dark. I run through the woods, and I run down this very atmospheric laurel-covered road. And I am inviting spirits. I'm inviting any paranormal activity tomorrow morning to make itself present to me on that run, in the hope that I can then witness something that will make me question my cynicism. In itself, would you say that that is a dangerous invitation, or would you say it's a dangerous invitation?
Without a doubt.
So do you think that I'm courting trouble?
Yes. If I was you, I would only aim that at your family that's in spirit. I wouldn't... Yeah. That's almost like I said at the start, if you've got the front door of your home open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year, any person, any Tom, Dick and Harry can come in. Right. What you're doing by saying that is giving whoever that may be from spirit a free will, and all it would take is for somebody who is of a mischievous personality, shall we say, to get hold of that.
So if I revise my invitation to say spirits, friendly spirits from the family who wish to make themselves present, and that I come with an open mind, and that I, even though I'm a confirmed doubter, I come with a degree of respect, and I would like some form of intervention. I only picked that location because I'm on my own, and I'm just dealing with the atmospherics and also the evidence that's been put in front of us this morning that it's in those kind of environments that spirits show themselves. So tomorrow morning, on that run, at 5 o'clock in the morning, if I could have some sign, that would be most welcome. We'll find out tomorrow if something happens. And of course you'll have to tune our way at 9 o'clock tomorrow to find out if anything did happen. Roy, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
You're through to Steve and to Nick. Nick is a medium, and Steve is a paranormal expert from Norfolk Hauntings. What would you like to say?
Well, I'll just tell you briefly about an experience I had. I've always been a non-believer all my life, and around about 2001, the wife said to me, there's a spiritual meeting going on, down at a local club. Would you want to come along? So I said, not really interested. Come on, she said, we will go. So we went there, and I got picked out. Make it brief, this medium told me things that no one else knew, I'd never told anyone that I didn't put my dad's name on his grave. She told me that, so now I'm thinking, this is good, it must be a friend of the wife's, very sceptical. And it wasn't until about a few weeks later, when we got back afterwards, things started happening around the house. So first of all, you put it down to your imagination.
What kind of things?
Well, it's about 12 years worth, so I can't go through all that. But you'd see shadows, orbs, all the sort of norm that you'd see out the corner of your eye, until you start to see things actually floating around in front of you. And when you get your own guests coming into your house on Christmas Eve to stay with you over Christmas, and then Christmas Day they get up and say, I've got to go home, I can't stay here. And you ask them why, and they say, look, you're right, your place is haunted, we've got to go home. And when you get someone come in and fit a carpet, and then you owe them several £700 for the fitting, they leave the house, and you say, well, I'll just pay you your money, and they say, I'll be back for it. And I say, I've got some more work for you, and they don't come back anymore. And it just got worse and worse. So at the finish, we thought we'd better ask for help. So we got back in touch with a medium who put this upon us. And she said to us, oh, I don't remember much about it. She said, but I don't think I can help you. She didn't really want to know. We had a production team come in from Anglia TV. They collected the story. Josh Ackland introduced the show on television.
Right.
All this was with the promise of helping us out afterwards, and everyone deserted us. But over the years...
Forgive me, Roy, I've got my travels, so I'm going to whiz you to the conclusion. You've decided to have this ghost removed, so who in the end managed to remove the ghost?
Well, at the finish, see, being hypocritical, we're not churchgoers. But I said we'd best get the church involved, and we did. And I'm not mentioning any names, but Kind Vicar came out from our local church, and he brought someone else back with him on a second occasion. They done a little ritual, blessing the property, and touch wood, it's been okay for the last few years.
Right, okay, Roy, thank you. Good to have you on. Sarah's going to join us in a moment, and then we're going to hear some audio for one of Steve's experiments.
BBC Radio Norfolk Travel.
Quick update on the roads. Here's Russell.
Well, hi there. Thankfully, I'm not aware of any accidents or incidents, but it does look a bit busy on Dereham Road, Cossey coming into Norwich, a bit of the A12 that goes through the roadworks at Corton, looking very slow if you're going out of county. And if there's anything more where you are, do let me know. 0500 827 362. There's more in half an hour.
Sarah joins the conversation. Sarah, good morning. Very briefly, what would you like to say?
Hey, I went to see a medium a few years ago, and all I told her was that I was adopted and nothing else. She told me some information, several bits, but one of the main things was that I was going to meet somebody with loads of little pigs running around me, and I'm thinking, okay, she's crazy. I actually tried to trace my birth father the following year, and I traced him down because he owned an organic pig farm in America.
Gosh.
I kid you not, and I have it on tape at home of her saying it. She also told me I would meet somebody called Jessica. It turns out I have a half sister called Jessica, and I've actually just got back from Chicago last week, meeting my grandma and aunts and uncles for the first time.
Sarah, come in and tell me that story in longer form, because it's a fascinating story. Thank you so much for your call. We'll get in contact with you and invite you into the studio. Let's listen to this again. This is one of Steve's experiments that I wrongly attributed to our Friday night experiment, which you'll hear more about after 11 o'clock. This is one of Steve's experiments, and listen out for the woman's voice answering yes.
How old was the previous parent?
Lauren, my daughter's same age as Chloe.
Well, she's 23, isn't she?
Yeah, how old are you?
21.
Was she single, sorry to ask?
Yeah.
So she was living with her own mum, but that was 6 months where she left?
Yeah. Because she felt like she was going mad.
Right, if you didn't hear it again, listen very carefully. We just isolated the important bit.
So she was living with her own mum, but that was 6 months where she left?
Yeah.
So very breathy. Steve, you were saying that is a spirit?
Yeah.
Okay. And you just picked that up on a normal recording device?
Yeah, normal digital voice recorder.
Yeah. And when you were there, did you hear it, or was it when you listened back to it?
No, didn't hear a thing.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. We'll hear more like that after 11 o'clock this morning. Nick and Steve, thank you so much for coming in this morning. The one thing, and I hope you feel this, I know that I'm very honest and I'm a cynic and I doubt much of it, but I hope that you feel that you've been treated with a degree of respect this morning in terms of...
100%.
Thank you. In terms of talking about this, because the one thing I can't stand is the people who try and trip others up or try and make it as difficult as possible for you to tell your story. One thing I am interested in, though, is that I put that invitation still stays, but I revised it to friendly family members to come through. But Nick, you've got a strong feeling that I'm courting trouble.
Yeah, it's similar when people conduct seances or Ouija boards at home. Like I said, with that front door being open 24/7, any mischievous spirit, presence, whatever.
Yeah.
What you're doing by saying that is giving them a free invitation to come close to you and your family and your home.
And this is why you open up and you close down.
That's why, yes.
Yeah.
Because you have to, not purely because of the protection, but also because of the exhaustion. Because for me, because I hear Spirit's voice that talks to me, it's a mental tiredness. Yeah. So if you're open and continuously open, all you're going to be is extremely tired.
How can we revise that invitation very briefly? We've only got about 20 seconds to something that you believe is safer.
I would just put that purely out to your mum.
Okay. To mum then. If you hear me in spirit form, tomorrow morning, or whenever, but preferably tomorrow morning, if you could show me a sign, if you could identify yourself, then I'd be very interested to hear from you. Yep.
Smell.
Okay.
Smell.
Thank you. Nick, Steve, thank you so much. Really good to have you on the programme this morning. Thank you for your time. On FM, on AM, online and on your mobile. This is Nick Conrad with Norfolk's biggest and brightest listen. We approach 10 o'clock on Radio Norfolk from the BBC.
Norfolk News, Norfolk Life.
This is BBC Radio Norfolk.
On the news desk, Nanette Aldis.
Good morning. The leader of a local council which pays at least the living wage says it makes a real difference to workers. The living wage rose to £7.85 an hour today. That's 21% higher than the minimum wage of £6.50. Trevor Wainwright, the leader of Great Yarmouth Borough Council, says employees deserve the increase.
I think they really do appreciate what we're doing. As I say, it's not a huge, a £1 a week on top of the living wage is not a huge amount of money, but when you're on low wages, that certainly makes a difference.
Cities could be given greater freedoms and more powers under plans being set out by the government, with Manchester the first to benefit. Greater Manchester is to have its own directly elected mayor, with control over housing, strategic planning and transport. Powers currently held by the region's police and crime commissioner would also be transferred to the new role. Investigations continue into a massive warehouse blaze near Swaffham that produced plumes of smoke that could be seen for more than 20 miles. Nobody was injured at the fire in North Pickenham, but the Fire Brigades Union confirmed their members didn't attend on Saturday because of their current strike action. Meanwhile, an investigation into a fire at a housing complex in Northampton last night, in which one person died, is to consider what impact the firefighters' strike had on dealing with that fire. The rundown bus station in Kings Lynn is due to get a £1.5 million worth of improvements. The 50-year-old hub will get a new canopy to protect passengers from the weather, and new toilets are also on the cards. Gemma Curtis from Kings Lynn and West Norfolk Borough Council says at the moment the bus station isn't up to scratch, but that will all change.
If you just turned up to the bus station, you didn't know which bay your bus was departing from. There's no central point at the minute, any signs that says, from bay number 5, the 505 is leaving. So there will be much improved signage, real-time signage, so you'll be able to go to one central display board and it will say what time, real-time, your bus is departing.
People in North and West Norfolk will be given help this week to identify and stop rogue traders. The county's trading standards team will be giving advice to protect vulnerable people from conmen and doorstep callers. Tim Sparrow has the details.
National retailers Ridgeons, Travis Perkins, B&Q and Homebase are helping to boost the Trusted Trader scheme in North and West Norfolk. They'll be hosting events in stores in Cromer, Thetford, Attleborough and Kings Lynn to encourage builders, plumbers, electricians and other trades to sign up for the council's Trusted Trader scheme. Trading standards officers will also be running free workshops for people who have contact with residents who are most at risk of becoming victims of rogue traders, from family carers and parish councillors to volunteers and professionals working with elderly and vulnerable people.
And the former Labour Cabinet Minister Lord Barnett has died at the age of 91. In the 1970s, he came up with the Barnett Formula, which allocates public spending to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. It's still in place, in spite of him saying it was a temporary fix, which should have been reformed. BBC Radio Norfolk News, it's 3 minutes past 10.
BBC Radio Norfolk weather.
Some heavy rain working its way across the eastern side of the county. We will have some showers coming and going through the course of the day, but also some nice sunny spells as well. Maximum temperature possibly up to 13, maybe 14 Celsius. Dry at first tonight, then some scattered heavy showers. Could hear a rumble or two of thunder through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Clear spells though, that's going to allow the temperature to drop down to around 5 Celsius. All of us in single figures, so another chilly night. But you also could get a bit of mist and fog. That's going to hang around for Tuesday morning, but it will lift 1 or 2 showers, but then we'll get some sunny spells. Temperature similar at 13 Celsius. I'm Kate Kinsella with your BBC Radio Norfolk weather.
Nick Conrad on BBC Radio Norfolk.
Good morning, it's 4 minutes past 10. This is Nick Conrad with Norfolk's biggest and brightest listen. Our top story this morning, we're talking about all things paranormal. I've been hearing your ghostly stories, and we've been joined in the studio by spiritualist medium Nick Kenning and ghost hunter Steve Brown. On Halloween, we sent 2 members of the team to one of Norfolk's most haunted locations, the Bell Hotel in Thetford. After 11, we'll be hearing how they got on and if things really did go bump in the night. Sue came on the show earlier. She believes in the spirit world. Sue heard her son talking in his sleep and recognised the voice speaking to him as her grandfather, who had passed away.
And later on in the day, my son, he said, I had a weird dream. He said, and this bloke was having a right go at me. I said, and I knew the voice. He said, "Have you got any photos of him?" One, I show it to him, and he said, "That's what I was dreaming about."
Cute thoughts coming in on 81333. Start your text with the word Norfolk Standard Network Rates apply. In this hour, we're still going to be taking your calls on the paranormal. Plus, we're going to be speaking to Mustard TV's managing director, Fiona Ryder. Back in October, we brought you the news that according to Mustard TV's own research, 100,000 people watched Mustard on a monthly basis. The figures also show that they have a weekly audience of around 50 to 60,000. But are you one of them? And what do you want from your local TV station, Mustard TV? Your calls now on 01603 617 321. You can text the programme on 81333, starting your text with the word Norfolk, conrad@bbc.co.uk if you're emailing us. And let's say good morning to Fiona Ryder, who is from Mustard TV, the managing director. Fiona, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick.
It's good to see you.
And you.
First of all, I think the first word really should be congratulations, because regardless of what has happened in the bigger TV picture with local television across the country, it appears, from the evidence that we have seen on our switchboard, that people like Mustard TV, and it's battling against the trend and doing very well.
Yeah, I'm delighted to say that it's gone really well. It's been a promising start. We love the fact that we're able to serve a local community in a way that just hasn't been there before. And we always felt, and I fervently believe, that local TV in Norwich and Norfolk, it was going to be one of the places it would work if it was going to work anywhere. London is such a massive area. It's very hard to be local, and I don't envy them their task. But, you know, we are sort of quite, I wouldn't say isolated up here in the east, but we are in our own little area, and people are passionate about where we live. It's a fabulous place, and we're delighted to be able to cover it and focus it in a way that, as I said, just hasn't been possible before.
One thing that strikes me, and I was surprised by, but please don't take this in a disrespectful way,